So it's just booting up right now. Let's just give it a moment here. All right. Let me ask the audience members, does anybody see us? Anybody there? Are we being shadow banned? Okay, so great. Somebody showed up. Hello. Hello. Question. Are you able to see, audience members, are you able to see both of our video feeds right now? Or is it just me? I was just curious how it's set up. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Catherine. All right, good. I just want to make sure I got this thing set up because one time I was just flipping back and forth. I hate it when it happens. But anyway, so with that very awkward introduction, welcome to Super Soldier Talk. I'm James Rink, and today we have a very special guest, Guy Carter. And one of the reasons why I was interested in bringing Guy on here is because he's from Australia. And there are not too many people out there that have a lot of experiences. At least, I mean, I do know some people from Australia, let me say that, but not too many out there that are in this community. So I felt it was really important to get his testimony out there. Now, Guy Carter has a lot of ET experiences, and a few of them have been in some underground bases, but not so much SSP related today. So for those of the listeners out there that are hoping to hear some SSP stuff, we're going to hear, but he has worked with SSP whistleblowers. But you know what? Let me go ahead and read his bio so you get the full picture here. Guy Carter is a Star Seed Contactee who always knew we were never alone and would rejoin the universal community one day. Around the age of 10, he began to be abducted by the Greys for their hybridization experiments. This continued until his late 30s. He is aware of at least 3 of his hybrid children, and we're going to be going to some of that too today. He has experienced missing time as a result of a very malevolent ET group. Guy has been able to free himself of any of the Greys' attempts at future abduction. Now, I'd like to hear about that one because I haven't heard of anybody's been able to free themselves because usually they don't. Anyway, we'll let you go. Just hold your horses there, Guy, before you comment on that. He has ongoing telepathic contact with various ET beings who have come to him in dreams and visions. He sees himself as a representative of many of these races upon Earth during the global shift. He has genetic connections with the Pleiades, Lyrans, Mantis, Reptilian Orion royalty, positive ones, and has communication with the Andromedan Council. In his civilian life, Guy has a degree in science zoology. Currently, Guy and his wife, Michelle, own a health shop in Dharma Center in Victoria, Australia, where they do energy healing and psychic readings. They have worked with a number of secret space program insiders to help recover their memories, recall their past lives, annul certain soul contracts, call in different ET councils, clear negative entities and off-world implants, and heal them from trauma. He is also the founder of, or they are the founder of Star Family Conference in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. So I'm going to put links to all this later on when we get done with the video here tonight. So Guy will be sharing some of his experiences with his ET contacts and their messages, memories of his being in underground bases, his interactions and healing of SSP insiders, and the ongoing mission to bring light to planet Earth. Guy will also share some of his artwork. So his website is rosebudhealthstore.com.au and also starfamilyconference.com. So without any further ado, welcome, Guy. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Hi, James. Hi, everyone. Well, the stories, as you know, James, the stories just keep on getting bigger and bigger. So you can define yourself as a certain person and a certain being, and then you continue to learn more and more of your story, and you just find out more and more. So for a very first beginning, that's a good start.
Okay, so just FYI, I did get a copyright strike about 10 days ago. I was on a 1-week ban from any live stream. So it's becoming a very peculiar situation here on YouTube. There's certain topics related to a certain health condition that we're not allowed to discuss. And that was actually a video that was over a year old that got the copyright strike for medical misinformation. And we were actually talking about AI domination of the timelines and AI that is coming back from the future to alter the timelines. So apparently we're not allowed that's medical misinformation. So, but I'm fairly confident we're not going to go into any of those topics today. And it looks like I might not be able to discuss any of that stuff for at least 3 months as I'm on probation now. But anyway, so okay, I just want to throw that out there and that's mostly for the audience members who were hoping to ask some questions about that. But if you do have questions for Guy, you're welcome to put it in there. Okay, so I had to come up with some questions here, but how about we just go back to the beginning and you can tell us a little bit more about when you first realized you were a star seed experiencer.
Well, I guess the first thing that I knew, I was born into a dark family. So my father came from a line of Freemasons, and he actually came out from England. But his father and his father before him certainly were Freemasons of the Grand Lodge of London. So there's a lot of reptilian there. There's a lot of darkness, a lot of sacrifices, all sorts of things. It's perhaps arguably the most influential Freemasonic lodge in the whole world is lodge in the Grand Lodge in London. So that's my background. So I came in here as in part to heal that reptilian, very, very dark line. And so very early on, I realized that I was in a very repressive family, and that I knew somewhere out there that there was a society and a community that was operating fully in love, that they all cared for each other, that they lived in a place of abundance, that there was no misunderstanding, that all of the communication was telepathic, that there was nothing being hidden, that there was nothing being stolen, and that this was a core principle of who I was. I believe very much that the transformation of Earth will occur simply because I am here, I exist, and I hold it within me as a reality. So so it is going to happen. So early on, I went through a lot of struggles and a lot of hardship. I think most of your viewers have gone through tremendous judgment by those around them, their families and their friends. And so this was an ongoing process of moving towards an understanding of myself and who I was about. So I only really started to get some clarity when, at the age of 25, I thought, well, if Jesus found out stuff by walking in the desert, then maybe if I went out into the desert, and walking in the desert, I could find out what all this life was about. So I organised a trip to walk across Australia from one side to the other, from the west to the east, and I got a support crew happening. And but before that happened, I went on a trip with the now defunct ANZUS, the Australian New Zealand Scientific Exploration Society, into the rainforest, into far northern Queensland here. And I met this woman, and she was a devotee of this Indian guru called Sri Satya Sai Baba. So I took a punt, and I just got on a plane and I went over to India, and I saw this guy in India, and tremendous experiences. I saw tremendous miracles that he did, materializations, all sorts of things. He's known to bring people back from the dead. Certain people according to their soul contracts, whatever. So I realized what Sai Baba gave me was the ability to believe in myself and to define my own personal boundaries. And so I was able to state, this is me, this is not me. And so my family kicked up a huge fuss, and I was able to move more into myself. And then I went into intense meditation practice, where I meditated for months to find some sort of clarity within my own mind. That's the beginning of my spiritual journey. And when I was in the Theosophical Society one day in Melbourne, I was looking through all these different books, of course, and there was one book that just virtually leapt off the shelf and fell at my feet, and I hadn't even touched it. And so I reached over, and it was Barbara Marciniak's Bringers of the Dawn. So, and that was channeled Pleiadian information. And so from there on, I began to get a real handle on who I was and what my purpose is here on Earth. And I realized that I originally came from these beautiful civilizations of the planet, and that I came down here for a reason, that I came down here to elevate and to lift the vibration of Earth, so that all of Earth would transition from this place of darkness. Certainly the Pleiadians say that within a very short period of time, if this timeline had not been changed, that we would move into a place of total tyranny in this area of the universe. And so that's one of the reasons that I've come down here and been born into this time. I am some people. I go by many names and many things that I do in the universe, and one of those is being known as some sort of a Time Lord who's able to. It's a cliched expression. I mean, you go back to Doctor Who, and it's like, oh, Time Lord, but it's the only way in this English language that I can explain that I move into certain timelines. We assess them, and at certain times with certain timelines that are descending, we're able to form plans to move into those timelines at certain nodal points. There are points in time that are very conducive to moving into those timelines. For example, the assassination of JFK was a time node where we would be more able to move into this timeline. And so and then we transform that timeline for the positive. So the more we look at this, the more we realize that there are timeline travelers. There are time travelers both in the positive aspect and also in the negative aspect. So here we are living our lives down on Earth, and all of the timelines are being monitored and guarded and transformed all over the place. So it's certainly been an interesting journey. So that's pretty much where I come from. But so after the age of 25, where I started to go through my deep meditation, and I started to look at particularly my experiences with the Greys. There was one time where, because they so emotionally connect you to your children, that there was a time where I just had to get that image of my grey son, my grey child, out and paint it on. I painted it on the garage wall at my home, and so that I could externalize that image, and so that I could see it as being separate from myself, so that I had some sort of power over that event. So then I started to work on meditation and on healing. And the picture you've got up there now is actually of my hybrid daughter. Her name is Beth. And I had a dream vision. What they do is you remember, as you're coming out of sleep, you remember the abduction that happened. And so in this case, I remember I was lying horizontally on a bed on a gurney, and I looked to my right, and I saw this wide expanse of space out in the out through the big windows of the ship, and there probably was glass. And underneath there was this ergonomic design of benchtop, and they had all these sorts of instruments, looked very much like a dentist's, all of his sort of materials, how they're on these long arms and they can move them out, and all sorts of probes and things. And there were these three beings walking towards me, and they were your typical grey, and the one in the middle was very different. And she had this shock of tremendous copper coloured hair, and it was down cut very, very severely at her shoulders, and she was wearing this grey shift. And as they're walking towards me,
was she wearing a wig, or is that her real hair?
Well, that's it. It could be another deception, because the Greys are very good at manipulating your perception of your perception of reality and your perception of how you perceive them. So once again, it could have been an experiment where one of them simply donned a wig and donned a shift so that they could create that emotional connection for me with that being. So yeah, it could have been a woman with a grey with a wig. I did get a feeling, a very feminine feeling from her, but and her shift was just a very simple grey shift. And also they had this very sarcastic sense of humour. I looked up Bess, and Bess is like this a goddess or a dark god or a dwarf or something. And the other, so that was quite extreme. And these things, they tend to really create an emotional response from you. And so I felt very much that I had these children, that I already had children. I had these children off planet in the spaceships, so that even to this day, I'm 54. I haven't had human children down here on Earth, because I feel that already I'm very much emotionally invested in these children off planet. So that was Bess, and one of my other children was, I call him Ransom, and he was the guy with the scarf. Ransom was, and that was their name for him. Ransom was a little boy, and I remember once again doing up his coat. They had put a coat on him, and they'd put a scarf on him, and they'd put a hat on him. And I remember leaning down to adjust his scarf, and I just had this he was tremendously vulnerable, and I had this tremendous feeling of being his protector and looking out for him, and certainly having this very fatherly aspect when it was in relation to him. So I found out, as I did a lot of research about other people's experiences with greys, that there were certain experiences that just define, and that they do the same thing across the board. So another experience I remember was my sister. So my sister was involved in these genetic hybridization experiments as well, but she hasn't been able to. I haven't been able to sort of break that to her. So, but I remember us both walking across a disused sort of factory setting. And we were both holding a very big container, clear container, and inside each of us had a container, and each side was a little grey, was a grey embryo, and it was quite well developed. And there was someone, some lads walking towards us, and they were going to cause us trouble, and so the grey just raised. That's a bit of a different one. So I didn't. So I'll talk about that one now. But this is of me. It was quite interesting, because my experience was actually merging with the consciousness of the little grey baby there. So I actually merged with the consciousness of the little grey baby as it was being carried along this hall, and this was in a underground military base. I could sense that there was a tremendous amount of space on the right-hand side. As you look at the picture on the right-hand side, it was multi-level, and there was a large space between this platform and the other platform on the other side. We're walking along. The workmanship was very much a human workmanship. I mean, it was just like you'd see in a factory on Earth. The railing, you could almost
so humans probably built it for these ETs. Yeah,
right. I fully believe that. And then on the left-hand side, there was a series of vats, and the vats had this like this murky, sort of cloudy, sort of pinky liquid. And I realized that this liquid, and doing my research later on, that these were the vats that they put now what do they put? The human body parts, the hormones from cows and all that sort of thing. And then they actually, they gain their nourishment through their skin. So they then swim through these vats to absorb this nourishment through their skin. And I remember as that little hybrid child that I was actually sucking on the shoulder of this adult grey, and I was gaining nourishment through the skin of this adult grey. And the skin of the greys is very much like if you have an orange and you see the hardness and the very much the dimpled effect of the orange is very much how I perceived the skin of the greys to be, this sort of dimpled, quite hard, sort of hard textured grey skin. So so that was another awakening experience that I had. So once again, I feel it's about them attempting to twin or somehow move our awareness into their soul streams and into the physical forms of these little babies.
One thing I could add is, were the tanks actually pink? Is that correct?
They were. There was actually, a pinky, cloudy, greyy white, and there was, very, very similar to what was depicted. And the cloudy form was actually sort of moving around, sort of within the mixture. So it was probably possibly being circulated on a regular basis by little blenders or something. But it was certainly, moving about. It wasn't just static, the fluid inside.
Pink actually, sometimes it could refer to long-term stasis, if that's some kind of femto AI mixed in there. But I mean, there could be a lot of different formulas.
Certainly didn't
putting bodies in those tanks, then it would be for long-term stasis. But
okay, I certainly didn't see within. I didn't see any forms within. So you're right. It could be. I was just picking that up from what other people had read about what they do. So they could be long-term stasis chambers. I'd be okay with that. So I continued with they continued to take me. So the greys have a certain the night before I get taken was getting taken in the past tense. I'd feel a little like a little snap to my consciousness, a little twang, and it was like, oh, okay, they're going to come tonight. So so there were times when I'd know that day that they'd be picking me up that night. But I just went through many of the techniques that other people have tried. One thing that I did do was go through intensive meditation and clearing of my field. And I know that it may also be concurrent with the greys on a certain, the benevolence on a certain extent, not letting the greys into the earth and around the earth. Certainly, I have had virtually little or no experience of being taken by greys for quite some time now. So for over a decade, and I certainly wish that to continue. As I continue to move into the benevolence sphere of existence, such as the Pleiadians and the Andromedans, I find more and more that I believe myself to be a part of that benevolent galactic community, and as such, they protect me. I believe very much that the benevolence are working a whole lot behind the scenes. And while we're sitting down here on Earth and it seems like nothing's changing, maybe we get a few starbursts in the sky or something, that generally speaking that we're all alone. But in actual fact, the benevolence are working very, very much 24/7, 365 in whatever way they can, according to the non-contact agreement to emerging communities to help us to move towards this state of transformation. In particular, the Pleiadians very much want to see what's happening here stop on planet Earth, because if Earth falls to this tyranny and this darkness, then the next list on the dark agenda is the Pleiades. And already the Pleiadians have started to see, from what I've heard, the Pleiadians have started to see the defects and the influence of the negatives on their home planets for some time, and so they're very much invested in helping us here on Earth to make the transformation. I believe very much that I'm a part of the Andromedan Council, that I'm guided by the Andromedans, that they are more and more taking a part on what's happening on Earth. So I'm very, very much guided and protected. There was a period, perhaps 6 months ago, when they began to come to me, and they said it was like a graduation, James. They basically said, look, you've made it. We welcome you back. We didn't know if you'd get there. You went through a few tough times, and so I did incarnate in a dark line, but certainly through my practice of meditation and all of the others, that I was able to move to a place where I have some level of protection and from the Andromedan Council. So it's all good. I've been doing a lot of talking. I'll just take a breath. Was there anything else you wanted to
there's
move on
okay.
to?
While you were talking, I was going through my database here. I've got some more drawings of grays I wanted to share. Maybe some of this seems familiar to you. If not, I could just skip it. But Casera drew this one, but yeah, some different hybrids. We've got I think David Chase, I think he did this one. But this is the one out when you were talking about the little hybrids in the chambers. Does this look familiar to you?
That looks very similar. So the containers were round, and they were probably a couple of feet high. So they seem to be quite large, but the hybrids, the fetuses were quite large. But that's very, very similar to what I saw. The eyes were closed, but certainly on mine. But certainly there was an awareness. The hybrid beings were certainly, or were very aware of what was happening around them. So even though their eyes weren't open, in one case, the hybrid actually raised one of his fingers and turned the lights off on the installation. So they certainly had awareness and capabilities, even though they seemed to be just little greys. The first one that Kasara drew, the first image, is certainly rings true. That container is virtually exactly the same size as the containers that we used, though the greys in those containers were actually in fluid, and they weren't in any sort of comfortable wrapping. But you could imagine, and the hybrids they've got there look very, very much more human than mine. And but yeah, certainly there's certainly some things that are going off in my memory there with those sorts of images.
Yeah, the pink goo again. All right, let's go on here. I Kasara drew this one, but
yeah, so these sorts of images very much bring up emotional responses with me, and I'm sure they would with many other people. The grey abductions were encompassed far more people than was agreed upon by the government, and they have certain invasive techniques and certain invasive ways of getting into. I remember certain probes. There was one probe that I drew, and all of this comes to memory now, of a certain extraction device. It was very similar to the device you hold here, except it was they put it up in through somewhere down there to extract certain genetic material. But certainly in my mind's eye, I can certainly remember something very similar to the tools that you see there. So yeah, lovely. When you're out in space and you look out those windows, the feeling is just quite uplifting. So, but that's, once again, it's very similar to mine with the large wraparound windows. They started very low, and they went up to like 8 or 9 feet above your head. So you could see a lot of what was out there. Once again, okay, so you're really bringing up certain feelings and emotions. So certainly the greys I had weren't as buff as that. They look like they've been working out, and they're quite a bit taller than the ones that I saw. But they're out there. So but through. That's it. Okay. So as you see, a lot of what I've experienced is I've found a lot of support throughout what other people have experienced and what other people have drawn and pictured. So yeah, those hybrids there, those beings in the tubes there are very similar to what I experienced and what I saw. Yeah, so they're on a
Skin white
craft.
suits,
They've got, it's a
silvery.
little bit different.
They seem to like this either silvery suits or blue suits, but there's not too much. There's not like different styles like here on planet Earth. People like that. Some people like to have name brands, and it seems like there's just utilitarian
Yeah,
clothing.
so certainly the greys, they have no sense of, very little sense of humor. What they have is sarcastic. They have very little emotions. They have very little taste. They have a hive mind. But also another thing on a greater level of understanding is that the people who have come here on this and have allowed the greys to take them away and take them off planet for their experience. On some soul level, there was an agreement by every one of these people to be taken by the greys and to be a part of this hybridization experiment. In some way, there's a lot of compassion. I feel a lot of compassion for the greys, because the greys have been through very much in a bad spot, and they're struggling. They're doing anything they can to survive. I'm sure any of us who, if we were in a certain situation, would do all that we could to maintain the viability of our race and our species. So I believe on a soul level contract. And what that does is it places the authority for this back on yourself, so that you believe that you were the one that instigated this and allowed this to happen. So that you move from the place of being a victim to the place of being someone who can help others, and who understands that on some level that they chose this. And also, the work of Dan Burish, certainly. A lot of the greys are moving through the timelines, and they're moving through attempting to get cures. So this is very much a nodal point these last 10, 20 years. 30 years, 40 years, 50. The Greada Treaty goes back to, 1954. So there's a lot of the greys are shifting in and out of this period in time, because this is where they see the most benefit. So yeah, I feel, as a compassionate being, I feel that I compassionately allowed them to take me off on craft and to manipulate my genetic DNA, certainly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I have some comments here from the chat. One comment is SSP is the opposite of what this dude claims. He claims non-contact agreement. SSP is 100% contact. So what do you suggest? I guess they're referring to the law of non-interference, but we are being interfered with by the SSP groups. So how can they say they can't interfere when we're already being interfered with?
So what I was talking about was the benevolent ETs. The benevolent ETs operate according to a certain code of contact. And so the benevolent ETs, like the Galactic Federation and the Andromedan Council and certain other galactic councils, certainly have this code of contact where they will not interfere with developing races. Yes, I understand. I see that this is completely opposite to what the secret space program does. The secret space program is very young. It's in its infancy of learning and growing as a race within the galactic community. So there is much that the secret space programs do now that is very much frowned upon by the benevolent ETs. But the benevolent ETs are very much monitoring all of their actions. I remember, for example, Randy Kramer certainly mentions that there are these benevolent overlords that are overseeing certain interactions. He says that they're mercenaries, but they certainly will not do anything that's against this mercenary code or this code that the benevolent ETs place upon them. And Tony Rodriguez also mentions that there's this benevolent group of time-traveling ETs that are watching over the dark fleet when they move out and they time travel, and then they come back like an hour after a full day, virtually an hour after they left. Or is it before they left? It's a little bit confusing when you get to time travel. But they're also monitored by a group of benevolent ETs. I believe that the further the secret space programs and in particular the dark fleet, the further they go, the more that they will realize that they are under scrutiny, and the more things that they realize that they will not be able to do. Certainly there's certainly some of the dark fleet believes that they're able to somehow delay their karma indefinitely. This is what we had when we communicated with telepathically with a group of beings from the Mars Corporation. And they were on Mars, and they were looking out over us, and we telepathically reached out and we connected with them. And he was very cocky, and he said, well, we can delay our karma indefinitely. We'll just, if you guys take the Earth, we'll just go somewhere else and continue to be the same people. But the universe is a big place, and they will not be able to escape their negative karma that they are accruing quite quickly from the sounds of it. Their ways of interacting with the other races in the other ET races is very negative in many cases. They've been known to steal from other races. They've been known to make agreements and then renege on those agreements. They've been very warlike. They've been mercenary factions, which have been begun in and a lot like the United Nations or America, and have meddled in affairs that have not been conducive to the growth of the beings on those planets. So all of this will be worked out in time. So I fully agree that certainly the Dark Fleet and other factions of the benevolent, even the benevolent secret space program, Solar Guardian and Radiant Guardian are still also under these rules and guidelines. It's only a matter of time. So that's what I believe.
Okay, thank you. So we got some activity here. We're just go over a few more questions about the Greys and move on because we have a lot to cover here tonight. So some people are commenting the Greys are here they're breeding to steal our souls, but some Greys are incarnated in human bodies to help us. And then some people are saying that Greys we shouldn't confuse Greys with the Grey drones, who are basically infiltrated with AI, and they working for the Dracos and negative Nordics. So I'm assuming that I'm sure you're probably aware of the negative agenda. I mean, there's many different species of Grey, but and some say they're the J-Rods are from a timeline in the future, about 50,000 years in the future where we had nuclear war and winter and destroyed the planet. So they lived underground, but
there are certainly.
Go ahead.
There are certainly multiple different species of Greys, as you were saying, James. Multiple different species, multiple different agendas, and also, as you're saying, the J-Rods, multiple different timelines. So, and some of these timelines don't continue in the future. So, and not just multiple different timelines, but also multiple different eras from those timelines. So you have a huge amount of different agendas with all of these different type of Grey beings. We certainly lump them all into this one, the Greys, but it just, the more you look, the more you see, the more complex the picture becomes with, and just one part of this is the interaction we have with the Grey ETs. And what I'd like to say, though, is certainly, and there could certainly be some at this point in time that are actually come in to help us. There was one group that I was in telepathic contact with, and they called themselves, and they came down, and they were a rebel group, and they actually made a base in Chickasaw, in America underground, and they had actually escaped from the Grey hive mind. So the more you look, the more complex the picture becomes. I certainly the image that I've been given is that I've shown here tonight is a very simplified version. But what I would like to say is that each of you have the power to create your own reality. You have the power to state your own sovereignty when it comes to these Grey beings, so that if you choose not to have them interact with you, certainly there are things that we can do. My wife and I certainly do meditation classes, psychic development classes, and I also do energy healings, where we can remove implants and we can remove influences and we can annul certain intergalactic contracts if that's required. But you're the master of your own destiny. And so this is one thing, humans on Earth, around the universe, they have this vision of us giving our power away to anyone, anywhere, any different race of ET beings, and say, you've come from the stars, you're fantastic, you fly a flying saucer, tell us what to do. So so that's one of the lessons as Earth people on this planet, is to reclaim our sovereignty. And anyone who's having interactions with greys that they don't like, certainly there are things that they can do to ameliorate those effects and those conditions. We're all very, very powerful beings, powerful beyond imagining. And we look back at Alex Collier, and he called us now what was his word for us? The Patal. The reptilians are very scared of us. We have tremendous capacity to stand up and to reclaim ourselves and to reclaim our place within the galactic community. And so they're just playing a role for us. I would like to see one time where we all come to the point where we can stand in front of a reptilian being, this 9 foot tall, or a Draco, 12 foot, 15, whatever foot tall, who's slavering and looking at us as food, and stand in our own power and say, no more. You will accede to me. I am in power here. And this is one thing the reptilians very much understand. They understand power. They understand who's subservient very quickly, and who's the leader in the room. And that's one of the reasons why I took on this lifetime, a series of lifetime within the Orion system, so that I could learn about the reptilians, and I could understand. So I was a benevolent being. I was very pure and innocent, and then I moved into these reptilian lifetimes, and I understood how they are all about control. They're all about hierarchy. They're all about service to self. And so I grew through that system. In fact, I believe I've got a very vague vision of one of those planets. It was a very dark planet, very dark, rocky, high cliff faces, and it was red. There was lava. There was and these their halls were very, very tall, cold. They were in this within this mountain. And I believe that because I was able to eventually move into that reptilian royalty lifetime, that wherever I am, whoever I meet, that I have that energetic signature within me that proclaims that I am reptilian royalty. So certainly the realities between who we are now, driving in our streets and going to our workplaces, is very quickly merging with this global reality. And so we will see times where reptilians will openly interact with people on the surface of the earth, and but also not just the reptilians, many other ET races. And the reptilians have a bad rap. People say reptilians. Sure, reptilians eat people. Sure, they do some very negative and dark things, which you're all aware of. But they're also moving towards the light. They're ignorant beings, and there are some races out there that have very much moved beyond this service to self and this duality system. I remember being one of my lifetimes was as a reptilian commander, where I was in charge of a group of reptilians on the battlefield. And what I was a bit of a double agent. So I was looking for any reptilian who in this course of battle would either reach down to help one of their fallen comrades, or even reach down to help a fallen enemy. And then I would key mark them. I would mark them for a positive reptilian, a positive lifetime, and to contact and interact with them there. So there are a lot of stories. The complexity of the dark and the light within the universe is very complex. and there are a lot of double agents and a lot of triple agents. And I talked to a guy yesterday who came into the shop. I'll be doing an energy healing on him, but he has another aspect of himself, which is as one of the dark scientists on the ships, and part of his as a scientist on the ships, he was creating all sorts of nanobots and dark technology and implants. And as him down here, the aspect of him down here is getting bombarded by dark implants and nanobots and all sorts of psychic attacks by other dark entities and reptilians. So what I'll be doing
was
there.
it a group of mantis?
As a scientist, he was on a ship with other reptilians. Mostly the mantids, because I've had a life as a mantid, and many of my mantid experiences have been very, very positive. They've been very positive, very intellectual, very smart, and able to help out with certain like Akashic records and understandings. Also, first contact missions. As a mantid, I was a mantid on certain first contact missions with some of the natives of certain worlds. So I feel that there is a little bit of a misconception or crossover between mantids and certain of the grey type of beings with the large eyes. Certainly, all of my experiences with the mantids have been positive. And when you look at it, you look at the number of ET races out there is just phenomenal, huge, thousands, millions of different races and types, and they all have their own agendas and they all have their own perceptions. We look at Tony Rodriguez with his beings that he contacted. Certainly, he had a very positive experiences with one of those beings, and so the term mantid, I think he called them mantid, but the term mantid certainly encapsulates a lot of different types of beings. But certainly his encounters with that mantid being sort of set him straight for his life and helped him a whole lot. So I don't know if I could say personally that there are negative mantid beings, but that could certainly be other people's understandings. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I was sharing a website, etspecies.com, and there was one of those, and I'm going to actually share my screen again. Let's see here. Okay, let me go back over here. So this was an E-bond from Betelgeuse, and you had an interaction with them. So this was a negative experience, because some of the people in the chat were complaining that the Greys are they're negative. They work for the reptilian. So there certainly are some negatives out there, but they're also positive. So there's good and bad out there, everybody. And even like the Solipsi Ray, I mean, we can't all say that they're all negative or bad, but do you want to comment about any of these E-bonds?
Yeah, they're all souls coming back to unity with divinity. Eventually, what we're looking at is a universal transformation, is a universal ascension. So to do that, there must be understanding of between the different races, and all of the different races will eventually come to an understanding of connecting with this sort of benevolent power of love. I'm a bit of a hippie, I guess, in some of my perceptions, but that's what I believe. I remember one of your the people on the chat mentioned PGLFs. Certainly, there are also programmable generated life forms that are not ensouled, but they're very much like robotic grey type of beings. They don't have a soul. They're just programmed to do what they have to do, but they're certainly within a biological living body. So that's PGLFs. They've been mentioned for a couple of decades now. There are many different races that have been created and many different scenarios. So the Greys are certainly many different types of Greys, and some of them positive. The experience that I had was very negative. It was I experienced missing time. There was a walk. I used to live up in the city in Melbourne, and there was a walk that I used to do, and I used to go on exactly the same route every night. It took me almost exactly an hour, sometimes 58 minutes, sometimes an hour and a minute. So I did this regular walk that I do, and I walked through the park, and it was quite funny. I thought there was a park bench, and I thought, oh, if I step onto this step, and then if I step onto the top of the table, then I'll just have another step, and I could step onto an alien craft. And then I was, the next thing I remember, I was feeling quite groggy and leaving the park setting, and I noticed that the traffic was far different volume than I would have expected it. And when I got home, I'd missed almost exactly an hour. I'd missed exactly an hour of time. And then that night, whether it was a memory of what happened or they came for me again, but I remember these very dark greys, and they came, and they were very energetically very close to me on both sides. And the malevolence radiating off them was incredible. And there was an anal probe, which was really wide and almost like the vacuum cleaner hoses. It's difficult to say this, but it was like one of those very wide vacuum cleaner hoses with the like the accordion type on the outside. And so that was an anal probe, and that was up inside. And then when they wrenched it out in a very aggressive manner to cause as much emotional harm to me as possible. So I got very bad feelings off them. So certainly I'm not so much like Dr. Stephen Greer. I do believe that there are some very negative ETs out there. But we're certainly ascending, and I haven't had any negative experiences for quite some time.
We could be going back and forth all night about, because it's, there's a lot of people in the chat have their own opinions on the Greys. But how about we move on to the Arcturians, because you said you had some experiences with them. Is that something you would like to share?
So the Arcturians are quite present. There's the Arcturians are more like the policemen in the universe. They've got a very much follow the laws type of vibe. There was one Arcturian.
By the way, pause. Is this what they look like right here on the left?
On the left, they look very similar to that. Yeah, mm-hmm. Look very similar to that.
Okay.
And so this Arcturian, she was a reincarnational gatekeeper on Earth. So when you want to reincarnate into Earth, there's certain protocols, there's certain things that you need to be able to show them that you're actually got some aspect of dark within you. And Orion, the Arcturian that we connected with was Orion, and she was in charge of a reincarnational gateway around this zone, and also I think her zone spread to the South Pacific and also perhaps to California. And she was in charge of that zone, but she had been negative. She'd become negative, and she was working for the dark, and she was only allowing dark souls to incarnate. So we moved to a place of empowerment, and we called her in, and we held her to account. And my wife Michelle is very psychic, and this Orion lady was very close in, and she was attempting to diffuse us and get us on the wrong track when it came to our mission and her mission. And but eventually we were able to dissolve her, and she moved to a place in a prison, in a galactic prison, and the keys, her keys to the gateways, the reincarnational gateways, she left at her feet before she left. So we very much have those reincarnational keys. That's one Arcturian that we've had contact with. Another Arcturian we've had contact with was a lovely guy. He had actually a spray of yellow hair, almost like a surfy. But he was a member of the Arcturian commanders, the Arcturian army, and they had actually been able to arrest a reptilian female who was doing tremendous dark things to my grey hybrid daughter, and so we were woken up in the middle of the night, and this guy, this Arcturian soldier, had this reptilian by his hand and said, "We require your judgment now. We require this because they just grabbed her, and we require you to pass judgment on this reptilian very quickly so that we can move her on." So, and one of my friends is very much Arcturian. He remembers waking up and having three Arcturians at the end of his bed, all looking down at him. So, by and large, for my experiences, the Arcturians are very positive, but there are some who have been twisted towards the dark.
So, as far as that, the Arcturian that was in charge of this gateway for reincarnation, I'm assuming that's like a Lord of Karma kind of situation. Were they like, say, would they put like light workers into a family that with very negative polarity to kind of beat them up to keep them from doing the mission? Is that would that describe something?
Yeah, it's very much like that. And another aspect of it is that as light workers, we and Star Seeds, we had a mission before we were born here to accumulate some sort of dark energy, so that we would actually be able, so that people like Orion would actually say, "Yeah, you've got dark in you, you can go through." So Michelle actually remembers her life immediate to this was as a Nazi scientist doing mind control experiments, and I've certainly had some dark experiences on certain fleets, and so we were able to sort of encompass ourselves within this darkness, so that people like Orion would be able to say, "Yeah, you can come through." But yeah, they very much control the portals, and they can certainly shift people into certain lifetimes where they aren't able to share their gifts and they aren't able to come to an awakening. So you're right there. If we had clear portals to reincarnation, we'd be able to have beings coming down with full consciousness and full awareness, and be the teachers very, very early on, like we were expecting with the indigo children and the crystal children and all the other very, very gifted children that have been taking births on this planet.
Okay. By the way, I skipped over the drawing of the ransom gray, so I'm gonna just quickly show that because I did want to move on from the gray stuff, but I mean, if there's anything else you wanted to maybe explain what context you saw this.
Yeah, I was very much, I felt very fatherly towards him. I had this tremendously open heart towards making sure that he was being safe and that he was protected. He was very vulnerable, and I was doing up his scarf to make sure that he wouldn't be cold. And I actually painted him on the garage wall, so that I could just, because that image was just so strong within my psyche, and they'd certainly intentionally place it there to create this really strong connection, that I had to externalize it and get it out and see it as being something that was separate from me. But yeah, that emotional connection just goes on. I've been able to move beyond it to a very large extent, but that certainly affected me for quite some time, that emotional connection. So
Guy, when you first were on the space, when you were introduced to your hybrid children, did you embrace them or did you reject them initially?
I embraced them. I felt an open heart connection, and I guess I saw beyond, because my soul has lived in many different forms, in many different lifetimes, in many different planets. I mean, there've been often times where I've woken up in the morning and I've looked at my hand and I've gone, "Oh, okay, I'm in that body today," or "I'm in that body now." So I've had many different, with different types of physical beings. So when I saw that, it was very much the emotional connection that trumped any sort of physical appearance for me.
The reason why I mentioned this, because there was a lady I was working with many years ago that she had a lot of reptilian experiences, and she was part of their programs, positive reptilians, and they would take her DNA and combine it with some kind of frog-like amphibian creature. And so all these little frog-like creatures were all clawing all over, excited to see their mom, and she was freaking out because she's like, "What are all these creatures on her?" And then the frogs, because they're very telepathic, were all started crying that the mom was rejecting her, rejecting them. So yeah, I was just curious because some humans may not react necessarily in a positive manner to that, but when you see that from a soul level, we're all just the same, with just different bodies, and yeah, you shouldn't really necessarily see what you look like. But yeah,
Yeah, these ET beings are, they're very emotional. There's huge emotional connections, particularly with the positive ETs. I mean, your heart just opens up. They're just so full of compassion. If you're in the same room as an Andromedan and you look at Alex Collier and how he was so emotionally distraught being back here amongst us Earth humans once he'd spent time with them. It's just real. It's just truth when you're in their energy field for a period of time. And a lot of us down here are remembering other lifetimes as ET beings in all of these different shapes and colors. And a part of my journey has certainly been as I'm very good with genetics. I'm very good with creating different races in the universe. What I do is certain sound. You use sound, and then as you sound that vibrate that sound through a certain mixture, the DNA lines up around those sound frequencies and according to those sound frequencies. So you create different species through the different tones and the different sounds that you use. And then when you create a different extraterrestrial being, a different race, those different races have a different lessons to learn, different karmic lessons that they need to learn. So certain people will take a birth in a different race to learn certain lessons. So if you get born within a reptilian or a Draco life, then there are certain lessons that your soul is asking to learn about hierarchy, about service to self, about warlike behavior, different lessons about parenting types of behaviors or none, as we come to see it. So each of these different ET races, when you're born within those different races, they have different lessons that you're there to learn and to grow through. So the more different bodies you incarnate into, the more different lessons you're able to assimilate, and the more you're able to be a guide for other different beings. So in creating different races, I was able to create different possibilities for souls to learn and to grow through those experiences. So yeah, there are many people out there who will have seemingly freakish recalls and memories of all of these different types of beings, whether it's amphibian or insectoid or mammalian or ant-like, or any of these multitude, or even, I mean, Randy Kramer went through, you heard about all of his experiences with all of these different types of aquatic beings and subaquatic beings. And then you have Emery Smith talking about these like plasma type beings. Each of these different beings offer a different opportunity for a soul to learn different lessons and to grow through those lessons and experiences. So on a larger scale, the benevolent beings are more and more incarnating within the dark systems to learn about so we had the Orion Wars. We had certainly, I remember a lifetime as a Lyran being. I was a Lyran female when the reptilians came
the
in.
Lyran, are they the cat beings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're very beautiful. They're very beautiful. I mean, we all cuddle our cats at home, and to have this lovely, big, strong Lyran type of being is with us. They've got tremendous golden auric fields and tremendous love. And so I was one of these as a female, and when the reptilians came, I was raped. I was emotionally devastated, and I died soon after. And since that time, the benevolence, and this is just a very, very short summary of it, that many others would see many other ways of interpreting certain events. But then the benevolence sort of were scattered to the winds, and then they started to form colonies, and then they started to realize that they had to fight back against the reptilians with technology and with weapons. And then that started, and then that led eventually to the Orion Wars. And so there was this attempt to destroy the dark beings through technology and through weapons and through spaceships. And then basically we fought ourselves to a standstill. We're on the very tail end of the Orion Wars. And so one of the ways the light beings, one of the other ways they took was to begin to incarnate within those dark systems, to learn and to grow and to integrate the dark within themselves, so that they could evolve to a point where, and then they evolved beyond that service to self mentality and concept, so that the light and the dark in the universe can integrate. And certainly there are a lot of beings that we once perceived as dark that are moving towards the light, some at a very rapid pace. I am one of my aspects is as a reptilian commander of a benevolent fleet, and there's a guy out there who's my second in charge. His name is I call him Sam. His name certainly is a lot longer and more guttural than Sam, but Sam's out there. He's waiting for any orders that I might have. When I first heard about Sam, when I first felt Sam in my field, and I thought, well, who am I? I'm just a person. I can't. But as I go on in my mission, I realize that there are certain things that can be done with reptilian warrior fleet. One thing I'd like to say about the Draco here on Earth is that they're not acting according to a certain warrior code. There's a certain code within, and it's a very noble code, a code of fighting where you do not attack an unarmed opponent, that you are of certain, the opponent is of certain strength and is aware that you're there, and that there's this honorable code of fighting. And there are a number of beings out there who are able to who have this warrior code. But the people down here, certain of the dark beings that have come to rule this place, I see them as being rebels from this whole noble warrior system of interaction. And they do things behind our back. They do things deceptively. They overshadow beings. They eat people. They act in a way that is anathema to many of the reptilian races out there, whether they're light or dark orientated. There is a system by which and a hierarchy by which things are done. And so we're coming for them. They will not be able to last upon this earth. They will not be able to maintain their hold, and this earth is moving towards the light. As a member of the Andromedan Council, I'd like to claim this earth for the light and for light beings, and we'll end suffering and we'll end pain. And it's only a matter of time, and it's happening very rapidly. Sorry, I just got on my high horse there, well, James. Sorry about that.
I know, and I'm sure you've got a lot of information from the Andromeda Council, but I wanted to touch up on a few other things first before we jump into that. First of all, I had a question about your Orion royalty experiences. And I mean, I know maybe you have enough memories to spend hours and hours of time talking about it, but how about you could just summarize it quickly? And if it was many lifetimes, I mean, maybe you could just I was just curious, what did your body look like? What color did you look like? How tall were you? What was your rank? What was your job, your duty, your role? Well, just what was your life like there?
So the feeling of being within a world in the Orion system is just so depressing. It's just so dark. It's I guess emotionally people can reach back to the time of the reptiles, of the dinosaurs, and there's this feeling of isolation, of separation, of an ominous feeling. I cannot remember fully my physical form. Certainly, there are a lot of other galactic memories that are a lot clearer to me than that memory. But reaching out to it, I can. I see the eggs. I see the isolation that I had as a child growing up. We weren't being looked after. We weren't. They virtually discarded us when we were young. Um, I remember the feeling. There's certain vibrations. I remember vibrations about that more than I remember like physical, like visions. But the vibration was of this royal family that ruled, and there was a feeling of a number of different royal houses within the Orion system. I counted maybe about 7 major royal houses, and when I talk royal houses, I mean families of beings, and clans, if you will. And there was one royal house that the benevolents have been able to incarnate within far more than the others. There was a competition that they had every year or every certain time period where the greatest warrior of each of the clans would fight. And there was a whole festival around it. It's like, who has the greatest warrior? Who has the strongest fighter in all of the clans? And so that would be a time when all of the royal houses and all the clans would get together. And there was a time where, because the light infused, because we were able to incarnate within that stream of that house, and it wasn't just me. There were a few others that we were able to bring the whole of that house, the vibration, a little bit higher. And because of that light infused vibration, the warrior from our clan was able to defeat all of the other warriors. And so we got a certain level of status and standing within the Orion community. And then that translated to higher connections. And then other members of the other houses began to suss out how did they get the strongest warrior, and they were sussing out, very much beginning to understand that there were light beings incarnating within their lines, and it was something that they weren't able to fully control. So I cannot remember the shape, but I can remember certain frequencies and certain feelings that I had, and it's just like a knowing that I have that there are beings. The Draco associated with this earth, and I'm sure they wouldn't like to hear it, but they do know that there are beings that they are subservient to within the Orion constellation, and that they will bow their knee to, and these beings are certainly very much returning to this planet. There's a time for these recalcitrant beings to be brought back into line, and I say that from a position of strength. And that's where us as humans are moving towards, that place of strength. So that's all I have. So I'm sorry, James. I don't get. Yeah, I haven't got so many physical visions of how I looked. I'm just getting feelings and picking up on it that way. Perhaps because I'm doing a job down here on Earth, that if I was fully open to all of those very, very dark planes and levels, that I'd probably go into a ball of depression, and I wouldn't come out again for some time. So I got a mission here, but that's what I can say.
So Kelly was asking about what it looks like. Picture of Orion. Orion Prime, the Draco reptilian homeworld, looks similar to Coruscant in the movie Star Wars. A lot of huge buildings and giant spires that go way up. Yeah. Well, anyway, we could. Well, let's move on here. You also said you had Palladian contacts. Anything noteworthy would you like to mention at this time about your Palladian contacts?
Well, it's interesting because for a long time I associated, I resonated with being a Pleiadian. So from my early age of from 25 until about 50, I was very much identified as a Pleiadian soul. I felt that I had a family in the Pleiades, and the love that emanates from these Pleiadian beings, and they're also very beautiful. They've got long blonde hair, they've got blue eyes, they're so physically well proportioned that that most of us would swoon over these beings if we met them in the street. So I was very associated with them. I believe I have children, family in the Pleiades that very much resonate with me and want me back. As I grew, and that we're light workers and that we're star seeds, certainly the memory that Michelle and I had as star seeds coming onto this earth was that the Pleiades was very much a portal for beings from all over the universe to come to gather in the Pleiades and then to move to incarnate here upon earth to do their job. So we have memories of vast gatherings of souls sort of gathering together in the Pleiades and going, okay, let's get down there and let's do the job. We've come in contact with a number in our work as energy healers and as psychic readers. We've come across many Pleiadians who present to us. They have a very similar energetic frequency that we pick up on. Also, oftentimes their appearance is a giveaway, whether it's their long blonde hair or their certain captivating eyes, or there's a certain lightness to the Pleiadian soul. But since the age of about 50, when I moved to when the Andromedan Council connected with me, and they came through in a channeled message, so I channeled them and I got my phone out and I recorded it. And they said, you are a member of the Andromedan Council now that you moved to a certain place, that we welcome you once again. So the Pleiadians aren't, and I might get myself into a little bit of trouble with people who identify themselves as Pleiadians, but the Pleiadians seem to be really enmeshed within the karmic cycle of Earth. They've been Pleiadians coming to Earth for a long period of time, and they've interfered and interacted with the humans at certain times in their evolution that sometimes hasn't been of the most positive of influence. So they are working very hard to help us out here on Earth, because if this dark tide isn't stemmed on Earth, then it will continue very much, and it will flow over into the Pleiades, and the Pleiadians will find themselves at the forefront of the battle. So they've very much got a lot of proxies, a lot of souls, perhaps more than any other type of starseed, are Pleiadian that have moved in here and incarnated here to try and to avert the dark tide. A lot of the Pleiadians are teachers and leaders and healers, and so I did. But when the Andromedan Council came and said, "Hey, you're one of us," it was like, okay. So it was like overnight, I began to identify with Andromedans and with the Andromedan purpose and the Andromedan mission. So where the Pleiadians are more like our big brothers and sisters, the Andromedans are more like our fathers, our mothers, our grandparents. They're more like the wise elders of the galaxy. So it's tremendous knowing that they're all out there, and even though it may seem that things are very dark upon this planet, the light are very much working towards a place of ascendancy, and it will happen very quickly. So I just want to give anyone who's wondering, who's worried about any of the dark forces, that the light is always far more powerful than the dark. I remember one of our healings we did, this dark demon came in, and it was like a dog type demon. It was like, 50 feet tall, and it was this horrible creature. And when we began to work on it, we called in the light beings, and the light beings were like 500 feet tall, and they were able to squish this demon, put it on a lead and squish it within moments. And this is who each of us are. Each of you out there who are listening to this, you are incredibly powerful. You have the power to define your own reality. You have the power to define your own boundaries. You can say to any of these reptilians, any of the greys, that I am not open to this. I am not open to any of this happening to me. And as I say, so it is done. So that's where we're moving to. So guys out there, it's happening. Nasara, Jasara, could I say that? All of these positive things are happening behind the scenes, and we'll find ourselves in a place where, and a time where we will be able to work with the benevolent galactic community to clear the place from, to clear this earth from any of the pollution, to bring back life, to green the forests with lovely trees, to recreate places of connection, embassies here upon earth with of all of these other different benevolent beings. The earth was seeded. It was meant to be a place of light, a place of peace. It's a beautiful blue and green gem within the solar system. And also, I believe once we've done Earth, we'll also be able to transform the solar system. Certain of the artificial moons are artificial moons. Certainly, I never got a good feeling for it when I was young. We'll be able to replace that with, and we'll be able to replace the other artificial moons. There are many others out there, Iapetus, I think, as well. And to take away, to get rid of all of the dark bases here and on Mars and on the Moon and on in the asteroid belt, and also all of the other places. This solar system is meant to be for the light. It's meant to be for souls to experience peace, love, harmony, and growth. And so as the galactic frequencies elevate, there will be a natural move of all of these planets to move into a place of harmony and a place of balance. So I would see there'd be terraforming, for example, on Mars, where where we had that very dark, the dark war. I mean, you look at Dr. John Brandenburg and his work with the radioisotopes, and also What's Up in the Sky 37. I just mentioned him. I followed his stuff for ages. But on the surface of Mars, there's just junk. There's just buildings that have been completely decimated. So I can foresee the galactic community moving towards re-establishing oceans and positive connections with the local people, beings on Mars, and bringing it back to a place of abundance. So yeah, lots of things.
Yeah, Mars used to be a paradise planet. There used to be banana trees, tropical palm trees, and in the northern hemisphere there were these flowers, the locust chrysalis flowers. I have a post about that on Super Soldier Talk. If you haven't checked that out, go check some drawings. That actually was it draws up the energy from the heart of Mars, and it helped energize the planet and the population. But yeah, there are portals that people can travel through to the other paradise Mars that still exists in other alternate realities. So we could easily go to these other realms, pull back all the flora and fauna, and reestablish it. Even extinct flora and fauna on this planet. Though I don't necessarily think we're going to bring back the dinosaurs anytime soon, but they have their own special place. But anyway, okay. Thank you. So let's go into some more questions. Or have you written a book about your experiences?
It's funny because my wife and I are talking about writing a book. We've been talking about it for years now. So I haven't yet. I've certainly talked at our Star Family Conference. It might still be online on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and you type in Star Family Conference or Pleiadian Guy or Star Family Conference, you should be able to get at least a part of my interview up. But we host seminars and workshops, so we certainly cover a lot of that ground. We host Zoom meetings as well, where we talk with people about our experiences. You can find out links to that all on our website at rosebudhealthstore.com. And also you can get on our mailing list. You can email us and ask to be on our mailing list. But no, I haven't at the moment. All of my interactions with all of my ET beings are drawn on A4 paper on loose copying paper in a folder. So I haven't yet been able to write a book, and being a business owner, we're very, very busy. So perhaps when we get a bit of downtime in the next few months, hopefully, we'll be able to write that important book, so that you can just read the book and know a whole lot about me. So yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, so let's go back to the Andromedan Council, because so I'm assuming you've had a lot of interactions. I mean, you said you had interactions with them. Can you give us some information on what they've told you? What we might see in futures, in the future for humanity?
So very much so. So the Andromedan Council sees birth. The Andromedan Council originated in the beginning. We were all just light beings. So there was no need to differentiate between Andromedans, Pleiadians, or anyone else. There was just this oneness of understanding. But when the reptilians came, there was this understanding of separation. There was this understanding of us and them. And so the Andromedan Council understand at the core of them, their being, calling themselves a council, that there's separation, that there's understanding that they are not integrated, that they are not complete. So that's something that they have taken on, so that they can form an identity that is against or withholding against the Orion Empire and other dark beings within the universe. So they understand that they have representatives from a number of different places within their galaxy and beyond their galaxy. There are different life forms. There are some that I know there are some beings that come down like me. Some of the Andromedan Council come down like me, and they incarnate within certain dark systems. They are very, very active. I get the number 12. I've always had the number 12 with the Andromedan Council. Originally, when they came to me, I saw them as a circle, and there were 12 very, very large, almost like white diamonds, shining diamonds within this circle. And then I saw it as a crown with 12 pieces. When I reached out to connect with the Andromedan Council after they made that initial contact, I saw, every time I reached out on that frequency, I saw different things. The original connection was on a spaceship not far away. But then I moved towards remembering a certain home planet within Andromeda, and from which I very much had very emotional connection to. And this planet was probably there. I was there at night. Certainly, the stars were out, and I was on the edge of a huge lake or a huge ocean. And the water was dark, probably because it was dark at night. But it was almost, I got the same vibration when I tuned into the Seers Lake in Tibet, where the certain Tibetan monks go and they pray around this lake to see visions of where future monks would reincarnate. And so I very much got that very, very soulful, deep connection to this home planet on Andromeda. But they're very busy. They're working very hard, and yeah, they have a lot of things. When I came down here on Earth and I began to remember who I was, it was like, hey, wow, this is really incredible. I'm able to walk around on this planet, and these guys don't recognize me. They don't recognize me out there in the universe, in many places. Many beings would recognize me for what I've done. I've had lots and lots of lifetimes. It goes back till the original time, if you will, to the time of Lara. But certainly they're working towards the light, and they're working according to certain galactic principles to interact with us and to bring the planet Earth to light. And more people they're contacting more and more people. Tolek, Alex Collier, but there are also many others now coming online who are channeling and working with the Andromedan beings. They're beautiful beings. So you're in their vibration, and you know that they wouldn't do you any harm, and that they're only there for your good, to support you and to help you. So they're out there, and we're here. It's hard because you're in a human body, so you feel a bit silly saying, you know, I'm a member of the Andromedan Council, or I used to be a reptilian, or yeah, I've had mantid lives, but many of the starseeds out there would recognize that that many of their stories seem to be very, very complex and convoluted, and that they identify not just as being a Pleiadian or a Sirian or an Arcturian or a Lyran or an Andromedan or from Torsetti or Betelgeuse or any of the other planets, that they realize the more they open up. The Starseed missions, we're still very much in our infancy. It's still very early on. When the call went out to all the different benevolent beings out there, not many of them answered the call. It was tough. It would be tough to incarnate within dark systems. So looking around, I see that certainly the people, the souls that have volunteered to come in here on this mission are very courageous souls. Some of them fall beside the wayside. They get onto drugs, and they refuse to open themselves up to the pain and the suffering that's inherent here upon Earth. But there are others that awaken, and so there is certain success. But I see that within a certain period of time, that the Starseed mission is one that is proving to be very successful, and there will be more and more souls moving toward mastery of this. The dark are very limited. They have a limited scope of being. They have a limited way of interacting and being. So certainly the hierarchical system, the traumatization, all of the techniques that they use the same techniques over and over again on different planets in different way, but in slightly different ways. But once you've got the dark's playbook, as a light being, we're way ahead. So yeah, so looking forward to a time when, as starseeds, we are en masse. We are able to incarnate quickly within a system and to change that system and to bring light to it in a very, very short period of time. So it's been a long learning process.
I was trying to find a drawing or a picture of the Andromedans. Are they do they have blue skin or gray skin?
The vision I had was white. I get white, maybe with a bluish tinge, but certainly lovely white, lovely larger heads than us, and flowing robes, and beautiful blue sky. And I see when I connected with a certain planet, I saw spires, white clean spires going up into the sky with lovely white bridges between these beautiful white spires. So they're taller than us, but yeah, and with large, very symmetric and beautiful to look at. And I get blue eyes, but I don't know. I'm not fully of the physical features, but yeah, they've got lovely, larger heads, not as large as greys, but they're taller than us and they're slimmer than us, and they wear lovely diaphanous robes. And if you were to meet them, they'd just be so beautiful. So often during my earlier times, I looked at my experiences with the greys and I thought, why aren't I meeting the Pleiadians? Why aren't I meeting the Andromedans? Why am I having these connections with these not too good looking greys? Sorry guys, but in the galactic scheme of things, you're not the.
So what is their home world? Because I mean, when you think of Andromedans, that means they come from the Andromedan galaxy, but I'm assuming they have a home world there, or are they just all scattered about and they live in space and stars?
So I don't know a whole lot about. All I can say is what's come to me. The Andromedan galaxy is huge. It's got multiple solar systems, and it's got multiple different races living upon it. It's certainly not just inhabited by one race of beings. We call the ones connecting with us Andromedans, but there are multiple different sentient life forms that live in the Andromedan galaxy. Also, the Andromedan Council is a little bit of a misnomer, because the Andromedan influence spreads out to other galaxies and many other star systems. There are many beings within other galaxies, not the Andromedan system, that see themselves as being a part of the Andromedan Council, and certainly as a part of doing their work. So, but they're different from the Galactic Federation. There are many different types of groupings of benevolent federations. The one that we're working with primarily here on Earth is the Galactic Federation of Light. You hear of people like Sheldon Needle, but Sheldon very early on with his Planetary Activation Organization, and then others later on. But there are also other galactic groupings that work for specific purposes and specific reasons and in specific regions. But the one that we're primarily working with, I mean, the Arcturians have a council as well. The Syrians have the Syrian Council of Light. Often in my my energy healings, if the Star Seed or if the Secret Space Program experiencer has certain connections with certain of these races, the council relating to them will come in, whether it's Syrian or whether it's Arcturian. I've worked with a Pleiadian healer who is very good with healing the chakras and the auric field. So I sense when he comes over and he begins to help, because my hands start making these typewriter movements as he's working on very fine details of the chakras of the people. But I've had Syrian people with Lyran, people with Pleiadian backgrounds, most primarily, come to see me. Yeah, so I do, as I said, past life recall. I do call-in councils, whether they're the karmic council here on Earth or whether they're the druidic council. There are some very aware councils here upon Earth in the astral dimensions that are here to help. There are certain magicians. There are certain native indigenous cultures. There are many different benevolent groupings of beings from Earth, but there are also benevolent groupings of beings out in the stars that I work with. And so I can annul contracts. There are certain light workers and star seeds that haven't awoken to their mission. So other star seeds that may need to be annulled of their contract to do a mission with those star seeds. There are often concurrent lives, James. I think you've got a few concurrent lives going on. So you've got an oversoul and you've got other lives on other ships and on other planets concurrently learning and growing. So there are some of those to become aware of. I've got certainly had connections with one who's attempting to terraform Mars at this very point in time. So that it's a small effort, but I sometimes feel him reaching out with his consciousness to the Earth, because they can, of course, see the Earth from Mars, and reaching out and saying, "I'm with you, buddy."
So an aspect of you is on Mars right now.
There is an aspect of me that I feel that I've been connecting in with, and he's shown me they're terraforming pods. It's like it seems quite rudimentary to me, but there are pods that they place within the soil of Mars, and so it's a protected pod, but it's plants that they plant within these pods, and so the plants create a certain atmosphere. And they also bring life. I can't remember the names. I did science, like rhizomes, like bacteria, all these sorts of living things that enliven and enrich the soil. So that sort of thing is happening, but it's still early stages.
Mycorrhiza.
Mycorrhiza, awesome. Yeah, things like that.
Attaches to the
So
roots of the plants and makes like a huge network. But yeah, I mean, they got to figure out a way to stabilize the temperature differentials. I mean, it gets negative 20 degrees below zero at the equator at night. That's gonna hamper what kind of species you can have. And they also got to get rid of those giant spiders. Uh, yeah, the predatory spiders. But anyway, go ahead.
yeah. Mars is very much out of alignment at the moment. It's very much in a place, and the Mars Mining Corp isn't doing anything to help. They're messing things up. The local communities, the natives there, for want of a better word, they're not about war. They're not about they didn't ask the Mars Mining Corp to be there and to claim their lands and to mine their soils. So there's very much a need for a benevolent interaction with these beings and seeing a way forward together. I see the same thing. One of my favorite topics is dogmen, and I see the dogmen in North America just proliferating, and also the Bigfoot. There needs to be councils where we interact with these beings and we form forms of common ground, and we form common understandings of territory and zones and ways of interacting. And the same with the beings on Mars. But my guy is up there, and yeah, he's in a rudimentary spot, and he's very lonely up there. He doesn't get much interaction with other beings. He's virtually a lot like a lot of our space movies. He's virtually out there on his own, just potting away, doing what he's told to do, and planting plants and looking after them. So, yeah, so that's an aspect of me. But yeah, certainly the more we expand our awareness, the more each of us see that we've got multiple different aspects. I have a reptilian aspect. It was sweet. My wife, Michelle, when she reached out to her reptilian aspect, he was basically just a grunt on a ship, and he wasn't very smart, and he was just doing his job. So since then, we've sort of been able to telepathically or somehow influence him, where he's got a little bit more self-esteem and a little bit more pride with who he is and what his position is on his ship. But yeah, so as we go forward, we're multi-dimensional beings. Each of us has different aspects of these different beings, and we're very, very powerful, as Alex Collier has stated, and they're afraid of us. So we can do this. So we'll work together and we'll get this done. And once Earth's done, there are other planets, there are other missions, there are other places that are dark that we that are calling out for us to go to incarnate within and to transcend beyond. So star seeds are very much in demand, particularly really capable ones upon this planet and also beyond. So the transformation of Earth links in with like a wave, a transformational wave throughout this region of the galaxy. And so there are other worlds that are concurrently coming to the light as well. So it's not just the transformation of Earth, but there are a number. It's almost like a line, like a wave of planets that are being brought to the light at the same period of time. Yeah, so that's what we're working towards. So you star seeds and light workers have come here and you've thought, yeah, I know it was tough, but I can do it again. Let's do it again. Let's once the Earth is on its way, let's go and have a bit of downtime in a lovely oceanside resort on the Pleiades, and let's get back into to helping other planets. I feel like a member of the recruiting team, but yeah, we're doing it, James. So yeah, is there any other questions? Any observations you have?
Yeah, we've got a few other things we need to go over, but somebody was questioning about the dog man. But before going into that, I wanted to make a comment about the Sasquatch. Recently, I interviewed Ted Mayer, and he does a lot of channeling. But he said that the Sasquatch was a genetic hybrid or chimera that was created in the time of Atlantis, with a species of humans, tall humans, about 8, 9 foot tall humans that are now extinct, and a sloth. And so, depending on the amount of hairiness of that Sasquatch, the less hairy they are, the more they can actually still breed with humans. Not that, not that necessarily you may want to breed with one, but apparently there is still a genetic link. But the more hairy ones you can't. But as far as some people were asking about the Dogman, do you have any information about their origins? And
So
go ahead. Yeah.
emotionally, I connect them way back to the Atlantean time. I believe that they've been here since Atlantis, that the Atlanteans did many dark experiments and many hybridization experiments. I read in a book that they did it for sexual enjoyment as a part of that. But certainly, I believe that the dogmen came from artificial genetic experiments that were done way back in Atlantis, and that they've had a population since then. So that was like 11,000 years ago. But one thing I'm worried about with the dogmen is that they're getting larger and larger in numbers. I feel that in the past there was their numbers were able to be held at bay either through predation from other creatures, whether it's grizzly bears or Bigfoot asserting their territories. But now that we've moved to mass sort of clearing of the land, that the dogmen are losing their natural predators or their natural things that keep their population down, and so they're moving to being in epidemic proportions, and so that there's something we need to do there. Dogmen are very smart. They're very cunning. They're very intellectually aware. And they're also aware very much of, they're driven very much by alpha male. So by the alpha male in a pack of wolves, for example, that's very similar to the consciousness and the awareness of dogmen. Some people have interacted with dogmen when they've been sad, like their girlfriends just dumped them and they're feeling really depressed, and they go out into the bush, and it's in that emotional state that there have been abilities for certain people to be able to habituate to some extent with dogmen. Dogmen are smart enough to speak. They're smart enough to talk. There have been times when dogmen have talked, but the most important thing we need for dogmen is that assertion of the alpha male. A lot of humans would very quickly rub a dogman the wrong way because they would assert themselves as alpha males. I've got a gun. I can shoot you. This is my territory. See that fence? That's my area there. I've bought it. It's my land. So that doesn't go down well with dogmen. When humans attempt to assert their themselves physical as the alpha male within a certain environment, the dogmen will come back at them, and they'll come back at them very quickly. So we hear of the siege of the Lockett Ranch. Was where the humans went out and they killed dogmen, and so the dogmen came back in a big way, and they assaulted the Lockett Ranch and laid siege to it. In fact, when the humans left, they basically ripped that whole building apart. So there are certain areas where there is a lot of animosity between the dogman population and between humans, but there are also other areas where it's pretty much they'll leave us alone if we leave them alone. They've had many opportunities to take people and kill them, but generally speaking, they leave humans alone, and sometimes they scare them off their territory, but yeah, they have been known to take people, certainly, depending upon how that person presents to the dogman and the past history of that group of dogmen with humans. Yeah, but they're scary creatures. They're big. They're like Arnold Schwarzenegger on steroids, and they're fast. They can keep up with speeding vehicles for some period of time. And their hands are prehensile, so they're able to open car doors and do other things. So, and they're very smart. They're very cunning. So, and they can read your mind and know what you're going to go for. If you're going to go for the gun, and they can also telepathically communicate with us. There was a guy who going to reach for his machete and rush this dogman, and he got this very emphatic message in his mind that say, "Don't you dare! You will not enjoy the consequences. Don't do it. Don't be a fool." So yeah. And then we move on to the rakes and stories of rakes and dogmen fighting rakes and dogmen fighting Bigfoot. It's a whole different world out there. So, and I was pretty happy because I thought, oh, they've only got dogmen in America. We're okay here in Australia. But then there are accounts that surfaced of interactions of dogmen in the Currumbin Valley in New South Wales, and also there was one here seen in just outside of Omeo, and my wife and I go camping up in Omeo sometimes, so it certainly brings it close to home. But yeah, I'd certainly love to see a concerted effort to interact with dogmen and to come about with beneficial outcomes of territory and understandings of interaction. Bigfoot, we've got them here. We call them yowies. And
I'm gonna share my screen here. So let's see if I can are you able to see this? There's some creature. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there's like, I don't know if this is a dog man actually, because it's he's got like some appendages coming out the back.
I'll just light my screen.
Okay. Well.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Is that looks like a raptor with the tail. There are still raptors in certain parts. Certainly CG has mentioned that there are raptors underneath the ground, and one of our local guys, what's his name? I can picture him, Rex. Has mentioned that there are burungors or Tyrannosaurus Rex type creatures in the outback in Northern Territory and Western Australia, and there are also different types of beings. There's you hear about the pterodactyl type beings as well over the Amazon forest. Also the ropen flying over in some of the Indonesian islands. They're really quite common. That's one of the, there are meant to be different types of dogmen. There are also skinwalkers. I don't know if you have heard of, James, the Navajo people, the Navajo Rangers, and you can see they're scary creatures. They're scary. And the Navajo people have had encounters with skinwalkers. It's been a long practice, and sometimes the skinwalkers take the form of coyotes or wolves or other carnivores, and so I'd suggest you go and check that out. So these human beings, and they have to like sacrifice one of their family, whether it's their son or something, so that they can gain these abilities to shapeshift. But they're certainly present as well. So the stories go on and on of different creatures that are there. I see this looks pretty good to me. This looks pretty good footage that you're showing now. I'm pretty amazed there aren't many more of these. But once again, if the secret groups, the FBI agencies get any whiff of any of this happening, they'll come down and they'll close down an area.
Is that what they look like?
Yeah, that's pretty good to what they look like. That's a female, but they're also
footage is legit. That's real.
So from what I'm seeing, that looks real. Someone might come and say that's a hoax. I think that one's a hoax. I think that one's a guy in a suit. You've got to be very, very careful about what you say is real and what you say is false. But certainly Todd Standing's videos are very impressive when he talks about the Bigfoot, and his films of the Bigfoot are very impressive. But there are different types of Bigfoot. We've got a type of yowie over here that has a cone-shaped head, and he lives in the Pilliga scrub, and truck drivers just won't stop when they pass through that area of when they pass through the Pilliga scrub, because this Bigfoot's nasty, and he pulls things off tarps off the trucks and all that sort of thing creates a lot of havoc. But there are also a few really good Bigfoot here. There's a town in the Blue Mountains where there's a Bigfoot that has been known to play hide and seek with the locals, particularly the local kids. So there's a lot of hide and seek, and they play in the bush around. You see with this film footage of a very tall dogman. Most dogmen are 7, 8, 9 feet tall. And they're very fast. They can, and so you see him speeding along there. He's virtually going at the speed of a car. So they're very fast. They're very agile. There are reports online of these military and former military guys with these guns. And one dogman took something like 36 rounds of ammunition into him before he actually fell. So it's scary. So it's best that we go the route of communicating with them rather than attacking them. There are also reports online of dogmen being weaponized. So I'm not quite sure on that aspect of things whether there's any veracity in that. But when you look at what the deep state have been doing with, we go back to Aaron McCullum. And a lot of genetics and hybridization of people to create these warriors, and also marine DNA that's also been incorporated so that they can become better Marines. This has been going on. All these experiments have been going on for quite some time. And they continue to be going on. They've gone on since Atlantis. But they're very dark. So so Dogman certainly, and many others. The Pigman, we've got the Pigman, we've got the Goat Man. There are many different. We've got many different creatures that are walking around in the outback. I went out in the outback driving around Australia. I've done the lap twice, and there were 2 times where and before I left, I thought, I know everything in the Australian bush. I know what a possum sounds like. There's kangaroos. But when I was in that tent and I heard that growl outside the tent and I was all on my own, there was a very scary thing. So there are certain creatures out there in the bush that, you look at David Paulides and his work, and you start to be very hesitant about wearing bright fluoro colours in the bush, and also about going places where many stories of reptilians in the Superstition Mountains. Reptilians say there is the race that says, look, we're local and you human people, you're only recent. So a lot of them believe that this is their world, and that we've just come in. So very, very different races, but there are some places in the Superstition Mountains.
So why don't you guys tell us what this is? Your gecko.
So yeah, so he's a cute little guy. So one of the different types of ET beings that has communicated with me, and I've had many different types of beings who've been most of them are quite timid, but they want to have some interaction, some representation upon Earth during this time of transformation. So one of those beings that communicated with me was this guy, and I called him the Gechiko. So gecko, so he's obviously a gecko, but chi is a basis fundamental sound. So Gechiko is not their name, but certainly chi certainly aligns in a different way with the connecting with their vibration. But what they were doing was that they were showing me a reptilian race that was not out there to eat us, that was not aggressive, that was not out there to take humans apart and to deceive them and to overshadow them. That this was a benevolent reptilian race that was they're very peaceful, and they're working with the Galactic Federation, and they're working to create peace and harmony in as much as they can do. So this is a little bit of a sign for me. Just because you hear the word reptilian doesn't mean they're bad. More and more reptilians are turning towards the light, and there are races of them that are virtually ascended, from what I've heard, and so it's an ongoing process. but he was a lovely little
These would
guy.
be
So,
the Nagas. The Nagas are the serpent. They actually look like they got like a snake tail of a human face.
yeah, the
They're
Nagas,
ascendant
the
masters.
Nagas. Sorry, James. Sorry, James. The Nagas are in, they've got some underground bases in India as and most places. There's rumored to be in the well of Sheshna in Benares. There's rumored to be at the bottom of that well when it's drained. There's rumored to be a door that leads to and it comes to a door that's a wooden inlaid door, and it's rumored to be a gateway to the Naga city. So that's pretty cool, James. Have you heard of the Nagas on other planets, or are they just here on Earth? Sorry, you're muted.
Okay, there we go. If they're one of the ascendant masters, I would assume they're able to get around. I would say they're probably on other planets as well. But okay, well, what about you? Also have this other drawing that you did. Let me pull this one up. You're a rhinoceros man, maybe. What? Why don't you give us a tell us what this one's about?
Okay, so it's interesting because before I came into incarnation here, I have memories of being a baby and being held by this being. And the amount of love that I felt from this being was just incredible. When I remembered him and I went back and remembered him again and again, I'd simply just ball up into tears because this being was just so loving. He's just such a strange being, though. It is so strange because he was wearing chainmail, but the DNA, he has these little whiskers, like fleshy whiskers on either side of his mouth from the upper lip, and this is once again the work of a lady, Linda Truckee. So you're welcome to find out. We could probably post a link. But he had tremendous amount of love for me, and he just held me. So I felt like, and also on the ship was this reptilian female. She was a lot shorter than him. He was like 8 feet tall, 9 feet tall. She was more like 5.5 feet tall. So I'd had this tremendous feeling of love, and I remember very much his hands, because I was in a baby, his hands were pink on the inside, this lovely pink, and they're very wide fingers. And when I thought about what genetics he would be, I felt like he may have some elephant, tapir, hippopotamus, certainly mammalian, cow type of genetics, as well as like humanoid genetics. But so I was trying to retrace the history of my soul before I incarnated, and I'm thinking that maybe I haven't got it fully worked out, but maybe I was swapped while my mum and dad's baby were in the hospital. Maybe they swapped me out for that for their baby. Certainly I felt very, very isolated from my parents. I certainly didn't feel like I was a part of the family for a long period of time. And so where did they claim me from? My soul goes back to the dragon, what do you call them? The frill-necked lizards type of beings. So they had this frill-necked lizard type of thing on either side of their face that they could open up. But they had a humanoid body. So that's a work in progress, retracing the places my soul visited before it came down into incarnation here. But the being, I call him the gargantuan, and he doesn't really like to be in the spotlight because all he's about is love. But he seems to us, he seems a very strange creature with very strange chainmail. I don't know why a being on a spaceship would wear chainmail, but that's who he is, and I love him to bits, and I can't wait to meet him again. And certainly, our physical appearance means nothing to me when it comes to seeing Gargantuan again. He's a beautiful being. So I think that's about all I have to say. about
Yeah,
him.
so you wrote here, gargantuan. He has bovine, tapir,
Yeah,
hippo, and humanoid DNA. So, yeah, all right, cool. Okay, great. So, I guess the only thing left, I mean, you wanted to talk maybe a little about your meditation retreat, um, or you can go into what is it, your star family conferences. You want to,
yeah. So our Star Family Conference is on hold at the moment. It takes a lot of finances and a lot of organising to make a conference happen. So we've had two Star Family conferences, and we've had people like Rob Potter, who runs the Mount Shasta Summer Conference in California. We flew him out, and Mary Rodwell and Melina Markin talked about orbs, and Mary Rodwell talked about the kids, the ET kids, and and Stephen Nevin Strong. I could go on. We had Lionel Lorch, who was an Indigenous man who opened the ceremony for us so that we could connect the Earth with the stars. This necklace was gifted to me by Lionel, so I'm very connected and respectful of that. And Michelle Kingston of the Divine Light Ocean Temple here in and quite a few others. So we had organised to have the next one, but and we're going to get quite a few new speakers. But the whole what word am I meant to use? The C virus happened, and so we had to go into lockdown. So all of our plans fell through. So financially, we lost on the preparation of that. So we're a little bit hesitant to organise another Star Family Conference at this time, because we've got a bit of a not so nice Victorian premier who would put us back into lockdown at the drop of a hat. So small businesses are suffering, and that's, so we're a little bit tentative, but we certainly have connections to all of these lovely people. Nikki Colombo does a radio program. We're here, James. Even though we're in Australia, there's a lot of us who are waking up to the secret space programs and the super soldiers, and so we're here. So a little bit of a connection across the ocean that we really want to see this come out into the ocean, into the open. And we have a Dharma center. So we run, my wife and I run regular meditation classes. She sees auras, she sees the chakras, she sees entities if there's overshadowing, and I work doing energy healing. You're welcome to pop on our website, and if you are in Australia and you can't make it to James and his group of very adept healers, then you're welcome to come here to Victoria, to Rosebud, to come and either get an energy healing from me or a psychic reading from Michelle, so that you're able to put together certain pieces of your history, of your past, of what's happened to you, and so that you can rebuild, and so that we can heal you, help to heal you of trauma, and also help to reawaken certain memories, so that you can integrate them in a place of harmony and peace. And as I said, I work with the Galactics, and I work with all the different federations. So with all of you Secret Space Program guys, there's always a bigger picture. There's always a reason why you took on all of this hardship and all of this suffering. And so yeah, we can help you, certainly. Yeah.
Well, before we can go ahead, we conclude with tonight's video. You said you had one experience, I mean, with a SSP experiencer that you were helping. Can you give us some information? If you're allowed to share it, that is, of
Yeah,
what you
I
learned?
won't mention her name. But she's lovely. We've come through. We've done a lot together. So I'll just mention that. And this is just one of a number of people that I've worked with. But she began to. It started with a dream recall of seeing lots of eyes looking at her, and also a dream of seeing of blood on her hands. And as we looked more into it and uncovered more of her memories, the eyes were of people that she'd killed, that she'd taken out. And as we brought back her memories, she was working for the Dark Fleet. She was working on a ship, and this was around a planet, and it was about the reserves of this planet. There were plenty of metals in the ground, so plenty of rich ores in this ground, and there were beings there on that planet that. But because it was the Dark Fleet, they were okay to just go in there and to start mining. So they set up a protective perimeter around this planet, and an aspect of her training was to protect this from benevolent beings. So there were benevolent beings that stumbled across this place, and she would go out. She was very good at weapons. She was very good at firing weapons, laser weapons, and all those from the ship. But she was also good at infiltrating within the ship, perhaps materializing on the benevolent ship, and carrying out assassinations. She was very fast. She was very agile. And she was trained as an assassin. So she was also trained in telepathy and remotely guiding weapons and weapon systems, so that she could do that from a distance. She could telepathically lock to a system and awaken it and use it to fire upon benevolent beings. And so she's had a lot of blood on her hands. I remember I had a recall. We saw her living quarters, and it was very simple in a ship, and it was a bench top, and there was a chamber where she'd do a lot of healing. And she, when she went to bed, am I getting this right, that she'd hang upside down in a state of meditation to rebalance and reawaken, and to cleanse her auric field, and to also connect with the orders. So she would have telepathic orders given to her, and she also had augmentation. There was augmentation of her limbs with graphite or whatever it is. There was a lot of augmentation. So one of the things that we helped her to do was to come to a level of peace with all of the deaths and all of the fighting and all of that, and to bring him back to a sense of balance and peace with those memories. So we did really well. And there's another guy, I don't know if I already mentioned him, but he'll be coming to me he has a concurrent life he'll be coming to me in a couple of days. He has a concurrent life up as a scientist up on the ships. So I've just got him in my mind because he'll be coming to me soon. And there was another lady who was very Lyran, and she also had Syrian heritage, and she would be fine with me I'm not going to mention her name, but she'd certainly be fine with me talking about this. She was came from Katai. So Alex Collier mentioned this. It's a planet on Sirius, and she also was fighting in Dark Fleets, and she was taken down behind the lines. And so they took her and they mind controlled her, and they put certain etheric implants in her. So one of the things I did was I removed an etheric implant that was over her left cheek and over the left side of her face and her ear and her mouth. And so I removed that implant, and that night she said the whole left side of her face just, because she was feeling a lot of pain, the whole of her face swelled up, and then the next day it was gone and the pain was gone. So these are the sorts of things we do. The dark are very nefarious. They work, whatever they can do that's dark, they'll do, whether it's to implant you with nanobots and black goo, or whether it's to create disharmony amongst the people around you, or whether it's to write contracts and hold you to certain soul contracts that you don't know, and you can go lifetimes with this soul contract hanging over your head. They pollute all of the things that we eat and drink. Everything that they can do to take a soul down, they'll do. So, and sometimes they're very cunning. They'll hide when we go to energetically remove certain entities. They'll sort of like wheel and try and hide and go, I'm not here. So particularly snake entities. They're very good at doing that, and they're very hard to remove. But others are a lot easier to remove. So certainly, yeah, I've had help from the Lyrans and my Pleiadian friend and a few others. So if you have a certain connection with a certain star race, that race will certainly be able to come in and work through me to bring them healing and balance. But there's always a greater picture with people in secret space program. There's always, I see it as being a tremendously noble thing to take on all this pain and suffering and go through all these experiences, and then so that you can then balance them and move beyond that trauma to an understanding of oneness and love. So tremendous respect for you, James, and for all of the other people who've experienced all of these often very, very negative things happening in their lives. So yeah, we can do it.
Okay, so let's call it a night. Unless, I mean, I'm assuming this is probably, I think it's probably a good place to stop because, yeah, we've been at this for over 2 hours now. But I do want to mention, audience members, be sure to subscribe to the channel, at least as long as it lasts. I'm trying not to be negative about it, but I'm doing what I can to get a backup set up. Also, be sure to visit my website, neologicaltech.com. You can get a copy of my book. You guys order some of my cubes or whatnot. You can check all that out on there. And also be sure to visit Super Soldier Talk. I know I need to update it. It's been a while. I got to get some more videos. I do have another video interview I just did with Kimberly. We talked a little bit about channeling some cyborgs. So that one's going to be uploaded soon. And but yeah, there you have it. So thank you again, Guy, for joining us here today. And if you get any more downloads and so on, we could talk about bringing you back here again. Audience members, thank you also for listening in here. I really appreciate all those you here on the East Coast. It's really late here, so I'm trying my best not to doze off, but I think I did. Yeah, your story is so fascinating.
Thanks, James. Well, thank you very much for providing this platform for me, and yeah, a huge lot of respect for all the work that you've done. A lot of the people that have come on your show have certainly come through with experiences that no one else would listen to and no one else would understand. So it's great that you give them the ability to share these things and to be seen as someone who's sane and someone who's just going through some difficult memory recall. So thanks a lot for your work. Tremendous kudos. And yeah, and if there's anyone in here who over here in Victoria who we can help, we're happy to listen. So yeah, give us a call. And yeah, thanks to everyone listening. Thanks very much.
Well,
it's been a pleasure.
Okay. We'll see you later.